are on page Samach Amud Aleph, page 60a.
Rabbi,
yes.
Can I tell you an interesting thing that happened to me yesterday? I was going to do an essay based on Rabbi Citron's class yesterday, which was focusing on a Gentile keeping Shabbos. And I thought, oh, this is an interesting thing to do an essay. So I did a search online. I'm looking, and I see here's an article about a non-Jew keeping Shabbos on collive.com, which is a Chabad reliable website. And I go, and here's an article, exactly what I'm looking for. And I see that the author is Rabbi Aryeh Citron.
Yeah.
We get the experts.
Listen, we have, thank you, Isaac. Yes.
You can't plagiarize somebody and then give it in and tease the teacher that wrote the article.
It's okay. Listen, if you take something that he wrote there and and connect it to what he taught, if you add something, why not? Just give the source.
Yeah, just put quotes around it and give it.
Don't plagiarize it, but it doesn't have to be your original thoughts. Just share something new that we aren't aware of. That's good.
Yeah, I just put excerpted from, and then I put the website.
Good man.
But Rabbi Citron will probably handle it next show.
So anyway, So Rabbi Citron is a published author, and so is Rabbi Rice. These Baruch Hashem, we've got some top-notch lecturers. Okay, so we've been learning all about the Shechianu bracha, and the reason why we seem to find a lot of confusing rules about the Shechianu bracha does have to do with the fact that this is not the only source of the laws of Shechianu. There are Gemaras elsewhere, and there's also Shulchan Aruch about it. As we've mentioned, the law of buying a new talis or tzitzis, and there is regarding sukkah, reciting a bracha on possibly building a sukkah, or on Shechianu for building the sukkah, or on the mitzvah of sukkah. There's discussion about a bracha Shechianu on Pidyon Ben. Let me just mute everyone here. So there is a lot of discussion elsewhere. One of the Gemaras is in Menachos, another Gemara is in Sukkah, and another Gemara is in Eruvin. And all of these Gemaras do talk about the bracha of Shechianu. So really, to get the full picture, you have to go through all the different sugyas, the Gemaras in these different places. And then there's a Taisvis. There's two Taisvis, and actually one is in Sukkah, one in Eruvin, and they both discuss more depth about the bracha of Shechianu. And the truth of the matter is, even our Gemara has a Taisvis on 59b, which I did want to go over, and that also touches on some of the ideas, but not the main ones. The Taisvis here on 59b mentions that the halacha follows Rabbi Yochanan according to the second version. Now, Rabbi Yochanan was the one who said that you recite the Shechianu, even if you bought it once before and you still have it, you recite a Shechianu when you buy another one. So, for example, my example was a car. You bought a car, you still have it, you bought another one, you recite a Shechianu. Maybe another example would maybe be a fancy suit. You have a suit, and you're buying another one. You would recite a Shechianu even on the second, even on your second suit, even though you still have the first one. You would still recite a Shechianu. And the reason why we follow Rabbi Yochanan is because whenever Rabbi Yochanan argues with Rav, the halacha follows Rabbi Yochanan. Now, Rav's student is Rav Huna. So if the halacha follows Rabbi Yochanan against Rav, for sure it follows Rabbi Yochanan against Rav's student. So therefore, the halacha, Taisa says, the halacha must follow Rabbi Yochanan, and that's and it follows the second version. and so that would be the halacha that one would say shachiyanu according to this Gemara on the second, something that he bought a second time, even though he once bought it before. Now, then he brings that
you mentioned it the first time we studied that subject.
Yeah. I touched on this thesis, but I wanted to go over it yesterday, and I didn't. So So I'm going over it now because I wanted to go over it yesterday. So the Re says that this only applies to begodim chashuvim, very significant clothing, like maybe a suit, tuxedo, but things that are like shoes, slippers, a shirt, these are not considered significant, and you would not recite a shachiyanu. Now, the Taisus brings a Yerushalmi, and this is really what I wanted to emphasize, is that the Yerushalmi says something interesting. He says that it doesn't have to be fully new, even used, but it's new to you. So even something used, but it's something new to you, you would recite a shachiyanu. And then he brings that if a person buys something, he says shachiyanu. If it's given to him, and this I don't think I mentioned earlier, if you get a gift, you would recite a hatoiv v'hametiv. Now, if you remember, hatoiv v'hametiv is when two people are enjoying something. Shachiyanu is when one person enjoys it. So when you're given a gift, you recite the hatoiv v'hametiv, the Yerushalmi says. But when you buy something, you would recite the shachiyanu blessing. So Taisa says that it's very surprising, because our Gemara says that hatoiv v'hametiv, you need two people, and there it just mentions you got a gift. You say hatoiv v'hametiv. That seems surprising. Who's the other person who's benefiting? So the commentary is
the one that actually bought it.
No, he received a gift. No one bought it. If he got a gift,
the one that paid for the gift.
Oh, the one that gave it. The one that gave the gift.
That's who is also benefiting, because here he is giving the guy a gift. The guy appreciates it it's to his chut that he gave a gift. So he benefits from it. That's the partner.
So some of the commentaries want to say, like Ben is saying, and they explain that if the person who you're giving it to is poor, then of course you're happy that the giver is very happy that he's giving a gift to a poor person, and the poor person of course is happy, and the two people that are happy. But if you're giving a gift to a rich person, the happiness is that he received your gift. There is a certain happiness there that a wealthy person wants to be friendly with you, that is developing a friendship between you and this wealthy person. So whether the person who receives it is poor, whether the person who receives it is wealthy, the giver is happy and the recipient, of course, is happy. And therefore, you could recite a hatoiv v'hametiv. That's the way they explain this Jerusalem Talmud that's brought down in Taisus. So the other thing I wanted to mention is I saw brought down in one of the Sfarim, Isaac's case. Is Isaac, I guess he took off, about a person who wins the lotto or wins a raffle, that there for sure you should recite a shachiyanu when you win something. That's for sure a great joy. So I know he mentioned it yesterday. Okay, so that touches, I think, on the shachiyanu rules. Yes, David.
Yeah, I'm thinking that when a person benches Gomel, where they were saved from some dangerous situation and they bench Gomel, you would think that that's a good time also to say a shachiyanu, but we don't see that.
So it seems like each of the brachas is set, for it's like it's sort of like overlap, because the Hagoymel is also thanking Hashem for your life. You know what I mean? That's why you're. So it would seem like because you're saying Hagoymel, I think that would cover the Shehachiyanu necessity. Isaac, I don't know if you heard, but I was mentioning that I did see in the Piskei Tshuvos that if a person I think it was the Piskei Tshuvos I saw it, if a person wins a raffle, like your example of winning a new car. So he says for sure you should say a Shachianu. He makes it very obvious that that would be an example of Shachianu.
The excitement is there.
The excitement is there for sure. So what I did want to mention, even though I don't want to go into all of the details of the arguments between and the questions of the Gemara, the questions of how to reconcile the different Gemaras, but I just want to touch upon it so you have an idea of what the discussions are. There is a concept mentioned in the Gemara that one of the rabbis says that he would recite a bracha even on seeing a new gourd, a new pumpkin, new squash, when it would grow. So the rabbis answered him, yeah, of course you can say a Shachianu, but we're talking about where you're obligated to say a Shachianu. That's a Gemara in Eruvin. So it mentions this idea about reciting a Shachianu bracha. That's a reshus, that's a permissible thing. You're not obligated to, but you can say it. And then there are cases where it seems there's more of an obligation, and the Gemara is talking about the holidays. And there is an idea that possibly only on the holidays would you need to say a Shachianu, and it has to be something connected to a set time, as we mentioned, Lizman Hazeh, Shachianu v'kibanu v'higiyanu Lizman Hazeh, that it could be that the Shachianu blessing is specifically connected to a holiday that has a set time. So that's one way of understanding the Shachianu blessing, that it's only recited, it's only obligated to be recited for like the Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, and that would be examples of cases where it's officially a set it's a set time, and that would be the meaning of the Shachianu blessing. Yes, David.
So the ones that are optional, are those the ones that you don't mention Hashem's name?
No.
Or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, no. You could say Hashem's name, and it's not a contradiction. It's not a problem. It could still be an optional bracha, and you could say Hashem's name. The other discussion is, what about a mitzvah that is the first time you're doing it? For example, kisui hadam, covering the blood of a bird or a chaya, a deer, a wild animal that's slaughtered, not on a regular animal, but on a bird or on a wild animal that's slaughtered, kosher animal. If you cover the blood, there would be a bracha al kisui hadam. Question is, do you also recite a Shachianu maybe the first time? The other question is, what about what?
The chicken is considered a wild animal for kisui adam.
I mentioned the bird.
When they do chicken, you do kisui adam.
Yeah, because of a bird, not wild animal. It's a bird.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
So, so the question is, what about a bris milah? What about a pigeon haben? And what about when you buy sfarim? And these are all discussions. One of the discussions is that things that are mitzvahs, it says mitzvahs lav lahanisnin. Mitzvahs are not for your personal enjoyment. It's for the mitzvah. So would that be acceptable to recite a Shechiyanu or not? Because you're not really, it's not physical enjoyment, it's spiritual enjoyment. But then the question would be, for example, the Shulchan Aruch talks about reciting a bracha on a new talis. What is the reason that the Shulchan Aruch says to recite a bracha on a new talis? Does it have to do with the fact that this is a mitzvah and you're reciting the bracha on the mitzvah? Or is it the fact that it's a garment? And the fact that is it any worse than buying something, a new garment? So there are these discussions, and the commentaries also discuss it. And the question is there Is there an argument between the Gemaras? Do some Gemaras imply like there's more of an obligation on Shechianu, and other Gemaras say there are cases where it's more permissible? And so these are issues that the commentaries discuss. And because of that, it comes out that the cases where we recite a Shechianu are pretty obvious. They're, all of the holidays, we recite the Shechianu. And there's a lot of cases where it's questionable about the Shechianu bracha. And one of the questions is, first of all, because there's arguments between the commentaries how to reconcile the Gemaras. And the other issue is, do you really feel the excitement that is meant to feel in order to recite a bracha Shechianu? And that's basically the source of the discussion of Shechianu. But there are definitely a lot of leeway if a person really wants to say a Shechianu. There does seem to be a lot of leeway. If a person's really excited and happy to recite a Shechianu, it does seem like there's room to recite it if a person really feels that they that they want to. For example, a person wrote a new book, Chiddushei Torah. So I saw there's a whole 5-page article here where he ends off, one of the rabbis ends off that for sure, if you wrote a new book and it would seem that
and you got a good review.
You could recite in Hakaisav Sefer Samech Moed, and he's very happy. He should say Besimcha Shechianu Mikimanu B'Ganu L'Zman Hazeh. This is a rabbi of a yeshiva in Israel, Zalman Baruch Malamed. I don't know, I just saw it on the internet. So he has a whole 5-page article about it. But he concludes that you could recite a Shechianu on that. There are discussion in the Mishnah Berurah about buying Sfarim, and he brings the Chayei Adam that says that if you're searching for a sefer, for a book, and you finally get it, you're excited when you buy it, so then you shouldn't, you should recite a bracha, or at least don't protest if someone else says a bracha. Anyway, so that's some of the discussions about the laws of Shechianu. There's another discussion of the Shechianu bracha, if it should be recited when you see the new fruit or when you eat the new fruit. So that's also a topic of discussion, again, based on different Gemaras and so on. And of course, we know we generally only recite it when we eat the new fruit, but there is definitely room to recite it upon seeing a new fruit. Yes, Ben?
I think what it boils down to, I don't know, somebody else named Ben there? I think it boils down to something that's very significant to you, something extraordinary, something you didn't expect, and you live to get to that point. That's what you are blessing, that you live to get to this point, to this place.
So something, I don't know if you want to say it's like that out of the ordinary. Even there are things like, for example, in Shulchan Aruch it talks about if you have a child, if you have a girl, Shechianu, if you have a boy, Hateva Meita, but basically it's the idea. It's not like totally extraordinary for people to have children.
But somebody was expecting
an
it for a while, wanted it for a while,
but
and then got it.
Right, but what if someone didn't wait for a while? They got married, and 9 months later, the wife gives birth.
He waited 9 months.
So,
I think even the candles in Hanukkah, we say Shechianu, don't we?
Well, again, that's a mitzvah that's from time to time. So that would be the other category of Shechianu. That's a set time, and those are also not extraordinary. Pesach is going to come.
Right.
We're going to say Shechianu. Sukkot is going to come. Shavuos is going to come. We're going to say Shechianu.
It celebrates an extraordinary case, the candle lighting. So it's always connected to something that makes you happy over and above the normal.
Yeah, it's a happy and over and above the normal, but it's not something that I would necessarily use the term
on mundane things. You
extraordinary event that you didn't expect. I wouldn't call it something that you didn't expect. You are expecting the holiday to come, but and maybe miracles.
And when you reach it, you bless.
You bless. Yeah. No, but I'm saying it's not something you didn't expect.
Yeah. Not right, all. That's what I'm saying. There are different cases, but you know.
Okay. Right. When you win the lotto, that's
and if you have simcha every day, you'll make a shechiyanu every day, and you will be better than everybody else who doesn't have those good things happen.
At least you'll feel better.
Right.
So, okay. So that really touches on the shechiyanu ideas. Of course, if we learn Tractate Sukkah, we'll get into, we'll cover all grounds, and try to cover it even more. But this is the general idea, I think, of the general understanding of the different laws. Of course, if a person has a shaila, they can always ask their local Orthodox rabbi. Okay.
Rabbi.
Yes, Moshe.
What are the redemption of the firstborn? Pitya Ben, do they also say Shechianu for that?
I didn't understand what you said. Say that one more time.
The redemption of the firstborn.
Pidyon Aben. Yeah. So there is a discussion about the Shechianu. It's discussed and it's an argument.
I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Mevarech al Hara. We're in the next Gemara here. We're on the first wide line. This is page 60A, and these pages, I must say, are extremely large. They're full of the Gemaras are like taking up the whole page. Someone once told me that the Tractate Brochos, even though it only has 64 pages, it's actually the largest tractate in words. In other words, even though there's a tractate that's 176 pages, and this is only 64 pages, but it actually has more words than the other tractates. I don't know how that's possible, but it has something to do with the fact that the pages are more full with words of Gemara. But I didn't calculate it, so I can't guarantee that that's correct, but that's what I'm told. Okay, so the Gemara we're on the first wide line, Mevarech al Hara. And this was a statement in the Mishnah which deserves a little explanation. The Mishnah had said that a person would recite a bracha on ra'ah, negative things, say the bracha dayon ha'emes, even though there is good that's going to come out of it. And you basically recite a bracha based on what is happening now, on the now. So
that's always the case, Rebbe. Anytime you have anything that's raw, ultimately it's going to be good.
Right. So because it's ultimately going to be good, so Isaac is saying, so then you would, if we were to think about the future, then there would never be room for a bracha dayon ha'emes, because everything is always going to be good in the end.
But now,
so because you're thinking about now, therefore there's room to say a bracha dayon ha'emes. But if you would be thinking about the ultimate, the end, then everything, of course, is going to be good. There would never be room to say a bracha dayon ha'emes. Is that what you're saying, Isaac? Not exactly.
Because you may not live to see the ultimate good or whatever there is. You got to live in the present. Right now, it seems bad, dayan ha'emes. The same we said about a father passing. You say dayan ha'emes. You find out later there's a Yerusha coming. Shechiyanu could be it can turn into a Shechiyanu. But right now, you got to live, and you may not live to see the answer, the ultimate good that's coming. You deal with the present.
So you're emphasizing the fact that there's room to say you should think about the future, but because there's no guarantee you'll see it, therefore say Dayan Ha'emes. I think that, I don't know if that's the full, the whole picture. I think on the one hand, we're always supposed to believe that everything is going to, something, good will come out of this. And we're supposed to believe that we are going to live to see it. But at the same time, this Mishnah is teaching us this idea that at the moment, even if something, is bad at this moment, we should acknowledge that this is from Hashem. And which is a little contradictory, because if we really were fully believing that everything is good, that, that it's ultimately good, if we really believe that fully, it does seem to be a contradiction to this concept of saying a bracha, Dayan Ha'emes, without thanking Hashem. In other words, depends on how much faith you have. If you really have so much faith that this is the best thing that could have happened, and you trust Hashem fully, it would seem logically that maybe the bracha should be Hatoiv Ha'meitiv Shachiyanu, right? You're thanking Hashem. You're in such, but the Mishnah says no. The Mishnah says no. You have to thank Hashem based on right now, which does not contradict somehow the fact that you are supposed to believe that it's going to be good. In other words, I'm bringing up an idea that deserves to be thought about, and that is that these two concepts are not as, they initially they don't seem to fit together. On the one hand, we believe everything is ultimately going to be good. On the other hand, we're thanking Hashem because of what happened, and we're not really emphasizing in the bracha that it's going to be good. We just say Dayan Ha'emes, God knows. God knows what's.
Rebbe, that bracha itself is looking to the future.
Right.
Good. Right. By saying Dayan Ha'emes, you're doing the right thing right now. Somebody said you can't say it's bad, but you can say it's bitter. Right now, I'm going through a bitter time because I'm going through the pain. This is bitter, but Dayan Ha'emes.
So maybe this is the idea that to say that Shehechiyanu, that Hashem made me live to this time, that wouldn't be right. That like the excitement is here already, because it doesn't fit the bracha of Shehechiyanu. That this is not what I'm. If the bracha would include the future, fine. But the bracha Shehechiyanu doesn't fit in this scenario because the good times are not here. Right. So to say Shehechiyanu doesn't really fit. Dayan Ha'emes doesn't say that it's not going to be good. Dayan Ha'emes just means that I trust Hashem in what's going to be in the future. So it seems maybe that's the understanding of how you can reconcile these two ideas, that you have full trust. And Dayan Ha'emes is not a contradiction to that. Dayan Ha'emes means we trust Hashem is the true judge, and ultimately this is good. He knows what he's doing, and he knows exactly what he's doing. So that maybe is the way of understanding it. So the Gemara here says, explains the Mishnah and says, Heichi Dami. How is this case where you're going to say a bracha for the bad that's happening now, me'ein ala taiva, even though something good is going to come out of it? That's the way we explained the Mishnah. So what's the case? Heichi Dami. How is this so? Going, for example, the shokol bidkud ba'are, that the flood took over your land and it flooded your land. Now it's basically going to ruin all of your
crops,
produce, your crop, or it's going to ruin the plowing, whatever it is, it's messing things up. Aval gav de tova hi l'didei, even though it will bring good for him in the future, Demaska Ara Shirtoin, that the land, or Sirtoin, the land will somehow build up some type of a sediment or some type of, Rashi says, Zevel.
It's not somehow. The land will get better nurtured and better watered and more things.
Well, the Rashi says the term fertilized. It somehow fertilizes it. Now, I'm just saying somehow because I don't know the science behind it, but somehow the water makes it into like a fertilization because somehow it becomes sour or sediment. I don't know exactly, but it ends up being a fertilization of bracha, and it benefits. Hashta miyad rahi. Now, however, it is bad, and because Rashi says it ruins the grain of this year, and one of the other commentaries says it ruins the charisha, the plowing, but that definitely ruins things, and therefore the bracha is dayon ha'emes. And you don't say the bracha shachiyanu, even though good will come out of it, but you say dayan ha'emes because the fact is this year's crop is messed up, or this plowing is messed up. So that's the first statement in the Gemara. First, the Gemara's explanation of this statement of the Mishnah, and now comes the second statement of this, the second half of this, the second side of the coin, and that is the al hatoiva, and for the good. Even though bad might come out of it, but nevertheless, you recite the bracha for the good that's happening now. What is the example of this? Person found a mitzia, even though it is bad, it will be bad for him, possibly. The ishama b'malchus, because if the kingdom finds out, if the king finds out that you found a mitzvah, you found a lost object. So, even though it could be bad for him, because the ishama b'malka, if the king finds that he hears shaka lamine, he's going to take it from this person and possibly even give him a penalty. So hashta miyatoivahi, nevertheless, now this is something that's good because now he is benefiting, and therefore he would recite the bracha on this special item that he found. So
my father Zechron of the bracha used to say, "You earned the money, yeah, you're going to pay some taxes on it." Or you had the windfall, you found something, yeah, you're going to be liable for taxes. But taxes are still not here 100%. And you see here what Rashi or Tosfos is saying is in the old country, if they found out that you benefited, they could take the whole thing away. He goes, in America, they don't take it all. You always have something to bring home for Shabbos.
Right.
Yeah.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Shirton in the dictionary, it creates a sandbank. In other words, it adds to the dirt, and in the next rain, you're going to retain more water if you have a sandbank around your land. Sand retains water easier than other dirt, you know.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm.
I think that would be the benefit.
Okay. Rashi says, "V'havale lezevel." It becomes like fertilizer.
I don't know how
water. And Rashi uses a word limites.
It's possible too, because water could have chemicals that are fertilizer, you know.
Sirtun choil berefesh v'tit.
Choil, yeah, choil is sand, a sandbank.
Refesh v'tit is like mud.
Yeah.
So, right. Okay. Thank you for looking that up.
I just looked in the dictionary. That's all.
Okay, that's good.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
it says in the Steinsaltz, at that time the law said that all found objects as the property of the king's treasury, and a person who did not report such an object that would be found would be punished.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's still the law.
It's still the law?
Yeah, you have to report if you found something. Like you find a wallet, if you're not reporting it, it's like stealing it, you know.
Okay, maybe. Okay.
Even the banks sit with accounts after 5 years, no record and nobody claims it. They go through a process where they have to first advertise it. And if nobody claims it, it goes to the state.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's not as surprising to me that if you found money on the street, that you would need to legally, you would need to announce it. I don't know. To me, it's not common knowledge that you have to go and tell the. I know it's a very nice thing.
If there's a simon, there's a simon in it. If there's a simon in the wallet, or then you have to report it.
Again, if you were dealing in a place that's a street that's all Jewish is one thing. If you're dealing with in a place where whoever dropped it gives up hope, that's another story.
We're not talking Torah. We're talking countries.
About American law. Again, right. So
I found in a store a very expensive phone. It was like $1,300 or $1,400, and I gave it to the customer service. They were surprised that I gave it to them.
Right. Yes, Mordechai.
Oh yeah, isn't there a medrash about there was a king who had announced that a certain amount of money was missing, and that whoever returns it would get a reward, but it had to be done by a certain day. And this rabbi found it, but then he returned it on the day after the king's deadline, and the king asked him why he did that, especially since he could be punished for not turning it in before the deadline. And he said that he didn't want it to appear that he was out for the reward. He was just doing hashavas obeyed, like according to what the Torah said.
I recall such a thing. It sounds like a story I've heard. So
lots of myself, right? That we have lots of.
No, it sounds like anyway. Yeah, I don't recall the exact medrash, but yeah, sounds good. Okay, so what bracha does a person recite? So he recites. It depends if the case where he found the Metzia, if it's good for him, so he says Shachianu. It's good for his household. It's other people. There's other people benefiting from it, and families of Vihatov HaMeitim. Okay, now comes the next Mishnah, the next statement of the Mishnah, and the Mishnah said that Haisa Ishtay Me'uberes, if a person's wife was pregnant, he says, may it be your will, Hashem, that she should give birth to a boy. I want it to be a boy. That is considered a tefillah in vain, a prayer in vain. She's pregnant, and you say, I want it to be a boy. Why is it a tefillah in vain? Because it is what it is.
It's what it is.
The baby, the child is already, whatever sex it is already. So the Gemara says
after 40 days.
Yeah, well, that's what we'll see soon.
Sorry.
And asking Hashem doesn't help. That's what the Gemara says. Actually, it asks it as a question. V'loi mahani rachame and it doesn't help to ask Hashem. Meisiv Rav Yosef asks v'yachar yolda bas vatikra es shema Dina. That it says that Leah, after words, after she had given birth to her 6 boys, so she gave birth to a son. She got pregnant. And afterwards, Yolda Bas, she gave birth to a girl. Vatikra Shema Dina, and she called her name Dina. What does it mean, v'yachar? My v'yachar. What does it mean when it says v'yachar, that afterwards? Why does it emphasize afterwards? Of course, it's afterwards. It's telling a story. When you tell a story, you don't have to say, oh, and after this came the next part. While you're telling the story, that's, of course, the next thing that happened. So why does it say in afterwards? My v'yachar, amarav li'achar shadana Leah din ba'atzma. Because really what happened was it was after something that's not written here. After she made a calculation, Dana Leah din ba'atzma. She made a calculation in herself, in her mind. The Amra, and she said, Yud Bei Shvatim Asidim Lotes Miyakov. There are going to be 12 tribes coming out of Jacob. Shisha Yotzu Mimeni. 6 came out of me. The Arba'a Min Ashvachis. And 4 came out from the maidservants, meaning Zilpah and Bilhah. Both of them gave birth to 2 boys. So now, so far in Yaakov's family, Yaakov's children, there are already 10 children, 10 boys. Now, Rachel, who's the main wife, Harei Asara, this is 10 children already. Im Zeh Zachar, so Leah thinks to herself, Oive, if this is a boy that I'm going to have, that's going to be a number 11. And Yaakov is only going to have 1 more boy, and maybe Rachel will merit that, but it'll be an embarrassment. She's only going to have 1, while even the maidservants had 2. My sister Rachel won't be even like one of the maidservants. So she davened to Hashem, and immediately it turned into a girl. So the child that was meant to be a boy turned into a girl. As it says, and she called her Dina. So you see from here that you can daven for a child to be switched from a male to a female. So the Gemara answers, Ein mazkirin maaseh nisim. You can't bring a proof from a miracle. This was really a true miracle, and normally such a prayer doesn't work, and it would be considered a prayer in vain. This specific case was a miracle and it worked, but normally that would be a prayer in vain.
I think it worked because Hashem probably figured it out before Sarah.
Hashem figured it out.
Before Leah.
Well, if he figured it out before, he for sure figured it out. But
Hashem figured it out before and after.
Before Leah was even born.
Always. Hashem doesn't change.
He figured it out after the pregnancy. He figured it out before.
I think he knew before she was pregnant. He was waiting for her to daven.
For Shabbat. I mean, start making it.
So the thing is that there is one of the commentaries has a different shot here, that we don't mention miracles because a person doesn't normally daven for a crazy thing to happen to change the order totally of creation. In other words, you want a boy, daven before your wife is pregnant, that Hashem should bless you with a boy. That's fine. You want a miracle? It's fine. But you want a crazy miracle to change a boy from a boy that she's pregnant with to a girl, that's breaking the norm.
Don't daven after the ultrasound, right? Because it didn't go your way. You wanted this, and it didn't happen, so you're going to start, no.
Well, the ultrasound is not always so exact. So you could daven after an ultrasound, I think. Because an ultrasound, they sometimes mess up. They think they see a little dot. They think, oh, that must be a boy.
No, really, I'm saying it's not. You see the that it's a boy, not a dot. I'm not talking at that stage. Chas v'shalom.
I daven after ultrasound. What?
I davened plenty during a miscarriage, and Baruch Hashem, it ended up being Chana Shena. It was a big accident, but believe me, I davened plenty then that there should be a baby there. Right. No problem.
Wow, that sounds like a major miracle.
But it wasn't. It was Teva. But at that moment, I didn't go running looking for the biggest doctor. I sat there and I cried and I davened to Hashem that this should all be in vain and it should all be a big accident. I'm not calling it a miracle, but Baruch Hashem, I ended up making Shachianu.
Right. So, I also generally say a Shachianu for a girl, even though I don't think people do. But so the thing is that
I made a Baruch Shepetrani on Avi, and I'm not so sure that I should have wanted to stick around a little bit.
So the Gemara here says Ein Mazkirin Maaseh Nisim. I just mentioned two explanations. One is that you can't bring a proof from this miraculous story, and normally you shouldn't. This is considered a tefillah shav. It's normally considered a prayer in vain. But there are cases where maybe miracles, crazy miracles happen, and the case with Leah was a extraordinary miracle. Yes. Even within miracles, it was an extraordinary situation. Now, the other explanation is that in Mazkirin Maaseh Nisim, that when a person davens, they're not supposed to mention Maaseh Nisim, things that are totally extraordinary. You daven for things that are within means, within the norm, within the, it should be, doesn't mean you can't daven for a miracle, but something that's crazy, that's breaking the Seder Sidrei Olam, breaking the whole ways of creation. That would be something that's only for someone who's a tzaddik Yesod Olam. That's the term used. This is from a Sefer Chayfetz Hashem, who I think is the Chayfetz Hashem. I think it's the Or HaChaim. I have to look it up.
Rabbi
wrote the Sefer Chayfetz Hashem. Yes.
Yes. If somebody's very sick, can you pray for them to? If they're very sick, can you pray for them to get better? Basically.
Even if it looks like.
Even if they're
for sure. What getting better is something. First of all, that's part of davening for a chayla. Anyone that's sick, Hashem can make them better. But it doesn't mean that if you lost the lotto, you daven that they should somehow your numbers should win. You know what I mean? Like they should, that would be like crazy to go back in time. Hashem, please go back in time and make me win the lotto. I lost it already, but Hashem, I'd like you to go back in time, and that's davening a tefillah shav. That's a prayer in vain. Or the child is already a male, and I'm davening for it to be a female. It's a prayer in vain. It happens.
And just because the doctor says, it's incredible, I can't believe that the cancer disappeared, that doesn't make it such a miracle. You should still daven as a matter of course. When the diagnosis is bad, you daven hard. And that's it. When it comes to health, there's no yish, you don't give up. You stand there till the last breath. That they should, I'm careful in telling people that they will recover. But I'm just saying that it should
he's asking a good question. But Moshe is asking a good question because according to this commentary, it implies that there is a certain stage where you might say, this is like asking Hashem for a crazy miracle. And does this commentary mean in such a case, you shouldn't daven? And that's a good question. You're asking a very strong question, Moshe, on this commentary.
Yes.
And the answer to you is that this commentary is not talking about a case of person sick, because by a case of sick and death, we don't say such a thing. When it comes to death, we say even cherev chada munachas al tzavari shaladam, even if there's a sword on top of a person's neck, the person should not give up hope from asking Hashem for mercy. So that statement, it means that, when it comes to a case of healing, we don't take miracles and say, oh, we're not supposed to ask Hashem for a crazy miracle. No, when it comes to health and death, things like that, we do ask Hashem for extraordinary miracles. But this seems to be limited to, more just general matters, not matter of health and life and so on. But again, that's a commentary. That's one explanation. Maybe there are others that might argue on it also. But I think that answers the question. Now, the Ibayas Ema, the Gemara has another answer to this question about Leah davening for her child to be a female instead of a male. The Ibayas Ema, if you want, say a different answer. Maisa de Leah, the story of Leah, was within the first 40 days. Kidatanya, like we learned in a brisa, the first 3 days, a person should ask mercy. During the first 3 days after a person had relations, he should daven to Hashem. He should ask mercy, daven to Hashem, that the seed, the semen should not be masriach, should not sour, literally, spoil. It should not spoil, and rather it should turn into a child. And mishleisha v'yad arboim, from 3 days until 40 days after he had relations, he should daven to Hashem, yivakesh rachamim, sheyehe zachar. He could daven to Hashem that it should be a male if he wants a male, or the opposite if he wants a female. From 40 days until 3 months, yivakesh rachamim shlo yehe sandal. You should ask Hashem mercy that it shouldn't be a squashed child, because there is such a possibility, chas v'shalom, that a woman could get pregnant with another child during the first. What?
It's not birth defects?
Well, sandal means
you mean
squashed.
A twin that was terminated.
Well, let's see Rashi. Shelo yehe sandal, shelo tesaber ishtay velad acher. Rashi says that the wife, he should daven that his wife does not become pregnant with another child. In that child, it will crush the form of the first one, and it'll be similar to a dag shel yam that's called a sandal. It's a certain type of a fish that I guess is like an inside out or squashed or something like that. It it's somehow pressed on and squashed. Sandal daimel, sandal shel yam.
It says it's called a flat sandalfish. In English, it's called a sandalfish.
Sandalfish. From the word sandal. Okay, a sandalfish. It's a flat fish, and originally it was a child, but it was originally, this child was fine, but it was flattened, and Rashi gives an example. If you slap someone, and it causes the inside to turn out. That's the example of a child being of a woman being impregnated a second time and causing the first child to lose its form. So the prayer that a person would have during the first 3 months is Shelo Yehe Sandal, that the wife should not become, it shouldn't cause the child to be, as Isaac said, shouldn't be deformed, but the meaning of the word sandal is from this idea of that how would it become deformed? Through another pregnancy forming at the same time as the first pregnancy. Yes, David.
I remember when I was learning Brochos back in the late 70s when I became frum, and I came to this Gemara about the 40 days. And according to medical science, because I was a nurse, medical science says that the gender takes place at conception with the XY and the XX chromosomes. It takes place at the moment of conception. That's when the gender is formed, according to science. Mm-hmm. Then somewhere along the lines in the 1990s, medical science discovered that in the first 6 weeks, which is 40 days, the gender can change to male or female, unlike what they had thought for hundreds of years that it takes place at conception. They found that it can change in the first 42 days, exactly like the Gemara says.
That's very interesting, because now we're going to see something in Gemara.
It's amazing when you think of, I mean, we do things here, we read things, you pick up a book and you have a statistic and you have this hospital published. Think of what they had then.
Right.
How did they live then? How did they communicate then? You had people on camels and horses and writing notes. And how did you find out about what somebody had or didn't have? The fact that the Chachamim, from whatever, collected whatever information and filtered that information down, fine, they may have described it awkwardly by our terms. A flattened fish. Yeah, we laugh. Ha, 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 flattened fish. Think of what they were able to accomplish and write. You're reading it now, 2,000 years later.
Yes, thank you, Isaac.
And recognizing that they were right. Okay, 42
But I want to finish the Gemara, Isaac. So let me just finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ben, did you want to say one thing, Ben? Because I want to say.
When you finish the Gemara, I'll say one thing.
No, you're going to forget. Tell me now.
Okay, in Israel, in the early days of the state,
yeah,
we used to buy fish that were flat and round, like a pita, the size of a pita. And we used to call it Moshe Rabbeinu's fish. Why? Because when he split the water, we thought he cut the fish in half or something.
He cut the other half.
We called it Moshe Rabbeinu's fish. A flat fish was totally flat.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so the Gemara says that from 3 months, it shouldn't be a miscarriage. From 3 to 6 months. From 6 months to 9 months, you daven that the child should come out in peace, peacefully. In other words, the wife shouldn't have any issues and the child shouldn't have any issues. Everything should go smoothly. So the Gemara asks a very interesting, very challenging question. Because the Gemara there's another Gemara that seems to contradict this Gemara. Does it help to ask Hashem? Does it help to ask Hashem which gender during the first 40 days? There's a statement from Rabbi Yitzchok B'rei Ravimi that Ish Mazriya Tchila, the man gives the seed first, Yeledes Nekeva, that causes the child to be a female. The Isha Mazras Tchila, Yeledes Zachar, if the woman gives the seed first, that causes the child to be a male. Shenamar, it says, Isha Kisashriya.
It's who has an orgasm first.
That would basically be possibly the meaning of it.
And that was proven true again by doctors now. That's exactly what they'll tell you. Depends who gets the orgasm first.
Rebbe,
that what they say? Interesting.
Yeah.
And we're in the
if
process.
If it's the man, then it's a boy.
That's very interesting. So the Gemara concludes and says, Shenemar, as it says, it gives a source. Isha kisazriya v'yolda zachar. If the woman gives the seed, it's a child will be a male. It's hinted to in that verse.
Yeah. That
the woman gives the seed, it'll be a male. Now, so we see from here that during the first 40 days, it's a little too late to daven if it'll be a male or a female, because it already is made up when whoever had the gave the seed first, which possibly means whoever has the first orgasm. So so the Gemara answers and says, you know what we're talking about? We're both where they both had an orgasm at the same time, or both they gave seed at the same time, if that's what it means. So then it will help during the first 40 days to daven, and therefore a person could daven during the first 40 days, just in case it's possible that they were both giving seed at the same time. And but after the 40 days, then it's too late. So coming back to David's situation, where David mentioned that the science thought that they were convinced that whoever that they could decide on the immediately what the child is going to be. That's possible in a case maybe where there was one of them had gave seed first, right. Then it would then imply
we're gonna do surveys now as to whether people remember.
I'm just telling you that there are scenarios in the Gemara where there are scenarios that the Gemara says that it would be set from the beginning. So that is interesting. That in other words, what's the conclusion of our Gemara? Is it majority of time set from day one what the child is, or is majority of times is it till day 40 that it's not set? Now look at the Gemara. The Gemara seems to say that if they both gave seed at the bas achas, seems like you have 40 days. But if one of them gave seed first, whatever that means, if it means having the first orgasm, so then it would seem that maybe it is the child. I'm just taking the conclusion of the Gemara. This is what it seems like from the Gemara, that it would seem like maybe it is somewhat set, or maybe it's, we'll have to look into it if there's any leeway there. But it does seem interesting. In other words, David, what your conclusion was is not the necessarily final conclusion of the Gemara. It deserves to be looked into exactly what the Gemara's conclusion is with regard to the situation of 40 days and how often. In other words, maybe we don't have the right translation of someone gives seed first. Maybe it it doesn't have to be a full orgasm. Therefore, it's hard to calculate who is what it means giving seed first.
Who are we to measure? I mean,
so that's, I'm just saying,
right.
So maybe that's the meaning behind it, that we can't calculate, and maybe it's often that way. Maybe maybe often it is that they both give seed at the same time. Maybe that's But in any event, we concluded this little piece of Gemara. Want to wish you all a good Shabbos.
Good.
And